Well, interest rates are officially over 7% and are gonna stay high for the foreseeable future. And you may be wondering as a buyer, what do I do now? I mean, prices are still high in California and now interest rates are more than double. You know, in today's video, I'm gonna explain my thoughts on this and maybe it'll help you make a decision if you wanna buy now or maybe you decide to wait. I'm James Renfro, a trusted San Diego realtor. I've been in this crazy business since 1989. I've seen all the ups and downs, and I take what I've learned and focus on educating my clients so that they can make the best decisions for their family. Because ultimately, that's what it's all about. And I want to do the same for you, so follow along and reach out if you need help. Now, let's hop into today's video. It's really important to start off by saying this is a really tough market. I mean, I feel for the buyers and the sellers that I'm working with right now, and you may have been on the fence as well about buying when bidding wars were happening, properties were going way over the asking price, and you decided to wait for things to cool down. Well, now things have cooled off, but interest rates have more than doubled, and as a result, affordability is much, much lower. So I just want to acknowledge that and let you know that I understand how you feel. With that said, there are some strategies that buyers can use to overcome the interest rate crunch, and sellers can use these same strategies to get their home sold as well. So I wanted to bring my preferred lender into the conversation since this is what he specializes in. So Roger Cubey is with Fairway Independent Mortgage and has been in this business for like 21 years. Isn't that right, Roger?
That's correct, just over 21.
Wow, so welcome, Roger. And I just wanted to bring you in and had a few questions. And the first one really that's on my mind is, what are your thoughts about interest rates?
Well, thanks, James, for having me on today. I appreciate the opportunity to help and provide some good information to your clients. First off, interest rates. Wow, interest rates, as most have probably heard, are currently at 20-year highs. I got in this business 21 plus years ago, and I remember the first year or so in the business, interest rates being in this realm. 30-year fixed, your average 30-year fixed conventional rate right now is 7%. And so that's the bad news. The bad news is rates are at 20-year high. The good news is that most analysts are expecting interest rates to start dropping in the next 6 to 24 months. Probably on the shorter side of that. So if you can afford your payment based on today's interest rates, the great news is that you're really going to be comfortable with your mortgage payment when you have a refinance opportunity that looms here pretty soon.
Well, so speaking of that, so what do you feel like the future of interest rates looks like?
So one of the reasons that the primary reason interest rates are as high as they are right now is due to inflation. We all are feeling the impacts of inflation. And so the Federal Reserve has taken action to fight inflation. Specifically, they've raised their short-term interest rate recently again. And that short-term interest rate, while it doesn't correspond exactly with mortgage rates, the action that they're taking historically in the 1970s, 80s, and the 90s, and again, the first decade of the 2000s, caused us to go into a recession. They overshoot the mark and then we go into a recession. And there's been multiple economic indicators over the course of the last 6 months that demonstrate the likelihood of us going into a recession. Some economists think we might already be there. Now, why does this matter? Because every single time we've ever gone into a recession, mortgage interest rates have dropped. So if we're headed into a recession, which is what most analysts expect, mortgage interest rates will drop if history repeats itself once again. And that could be as soon as the second or third quarter of 23, based on a lot of analysts' expectations.
Okay, so what is the feeling? You said the second or third quarter of 2023?
That's what a lot of analysts are expecting. I like to be a little bit more conservative just in my conversations with my clients. And so I kind of put a pad of up to 24 months on it. Sure. And in other words, if you can be comfortable with your mortgage for the next 24 months, know that you're going to have a nice refinance opportunity soon thereafter or by that time. But Fannie Mae, who is one of the entities that creates the guidelines for conventional mortgages, put out a report about 6 weeks ago, maybe 8 weeks ago, and they're estimating that interest rates on a 30-year fixed mortgage will be around the mid-4s by the third quarter of 23.
Wow, that's attractive. Mm-hmm. So what is your conversation with buyers like right now? I imagine there's a lot of hesitation that you hear.
Yeah, there's a lot of hesitation because the news is telling buyers it's a bad time to buy, right? That's really what's happening. Fortunately, in our market, the San Diego County market, it's a very different market from most of the country. Number one, the sky's not falling. This is not 2008 over again, where the market is crashing. And so there's still plenty of people who can afford the prices in San Diego. The demand is still there. While it's not as fierce as it has been, the demand is still there. So as a buyer, your opportunity to purchase a home in today's market is much better in many ways than it was 6 months or a year and a half or 2 years ago. As you know, James, 6 months to 2 years ago, when a buyer made an offer on a property, they were competing against at least a dozen, if not up to 4 dozen other buyers. And trying to get an offer accepted in that type of competitive market was very difficult, especially for first-time home buyers, VA buyers, low down payment buyers. And now that competition has dwindled to where a lot of times you may not be competing against anybody. And so for those type of buyers especially, it's a great time to buy because once interest rates do drop in the second or third quarter of 2023, the competition is going to get more fierce. And that should probably help to stabilize and drive prices even higher. Now, will we see the kind of increase we saw the last couple of years? Probably not. But right now, buyers are getting concessions from sellers. I'm sure we didn't see any concessions from sellers prior to the last few months. You would get laughed at. Now I'm seeing buyers getting closing cost credit, price reductions, those type of concessions. So if you can afford your mortgage payment based on today's interest rates, then it's a great time to buy.
Right. Yeah, that totally makes sense because 6 months ago, unless you had really deep pockets, there was no opportunity really. You had to be just all in. I mean, people were, it's kind of a joke, but some people were saying that they named their kids after the sellers if they would just accept their offer. And so today's climate is so much different where you're right. I mean, in a lot of cases, there is no competition and sellers are much more able to make concessions for people that are interested in buying their home. So yeah, that's fantastic news. So can you give some examples of people's circumstances that are buying right now?
Yeah, so I think one thing I'd like to touch on is, some of the products that are available for buyers in today's market that weren't really pertinent 6 months or so ago. And again, first thing I always ask my clients when we're starting to have a conversation about pre-approval is, what is your comfortability with the mortgage payment? Because ultimately, that's the most important thing about a mortgage. It doesn't matter if you qualify for a $2 million loan if you don't want to pay for it, right? And
right.
Everybody has different budgeting needs. Some people need more disposable income than others. Some can afford a higher percentage of their gross income towards a mortgage. So really, it's all about that individual's budget. So it starts there. First and foremost, your budget. So if you can afford your mortgage payment based on today's interest rates, one product that has been very, I've seen a lot of our buyers, a lot of our clients utilize is a product that's called a temporary buy down of the interest rate. This is a product where the seller can pay the cost And the way it works is your payment will be based on an interest rate 2% lower than the actual interest rate in the first 12 months. The second year, it'll be based on a payment at 1% lower than the actual interest rate. So let's say, for example, your interest rate is 7%, which is where the 30-year fixed average rate is today. The first year, your payment would be based on a 5% interest rate. The second year, your payment would be based on a 6% interest rate. On a $750,000 mortgage, that's going to save you $1,000 per month for the first year and $500 a month for the second year. And the beauty of it is you can typically in this market, you can get the seller to pay for this. And effectively what they're doing is they're giving you money that we're going to hold to supplement your mortgage payment for the first 2 years. Now, if you refinance within that first 2-year period, which is a strong likelihood because again, interest rates are expected to drop, guess what? You don't lose the money, you get the money back. So any excess money that's still available that the seller provided you at the close of escrow to supplement your mortgage payment for the first 2 years to give you that lower mortgage payment would be refunded. And if you refinance in a year, then you're going to have enough money there to cover your refinance cost from the seller who sold you the house a year later. So it's an excellent product, and that's a really good fit for almost anybody, to be quite frank, because of the high probability of a refinance opportunity.
Wow, so that's a great thing. So if you make an offer based on the idea that the seller will buy down the rate 2% in the first year, so we're talking 5% right now, right? So you'd pay 5% the first year, 5.5% the second year.
6%.
Or, 6% the second year, right? And then based on what's, current projections, you could refinance in the third year or sometime after the second year, right? And be at 4% or somewhere in that area. So, and in the meantime, be able to negotiate a really nice deal potentially with a seller.
Right, exactly. In fact, the likelihood of you having to wait until the third year is not real high. I mean, more likely than not, you'll refinance that mortgage before the end of the second year, and then capture a low, like we talked about, potentially an interest rate maybe in the mid-4s, which is where Fannie Mae is currently projecting rates to go by the third quarter on a 30-year fixed rate. So it's really just a temporary, artificially lower payment to buy you some time until the refinance opportunity comes. But the beauty of it is the seller will pay for it. Right. So from your perspective, then it sounds like it's a good time to buy a home then. 100%. I think it's a great time to buy a home. San Diego real estate over time only appreciates. Those are the facts. You can't, now if we were in Omaha, Nebraska, I might not say that with so much confidence, right? Because that's not what happens there historically, right? In San Diego, historically, home values go up, except for a little bit of a blip in 2008. But even still after that, prices went way above where they were in 2008. So, as long as you plan on hanging on to your home for at least 2 to 3 years, then I see no reason not to buy today. In fact, I think it's a great time to buy. And I've been doing this for 21 years, James, as you mentioned. I closed on my home about 2 months ago in a high interest rate environment. So, I just bought myself, so.
Right. Well, that sounds like excellent advice, Roger. And, I really appreciate you coming on today and giving your perspective. I really enjoy doing business with you. You've been a great lender and definitely our preferred lender. So is there anything else that you wanted to finish in closing?
I think maybe in closing, I think it's important, just like when we go to the doctor, right? We take the doctor's advice, or we go to an attorney for something, we take an attorney's advice. We take their advice because they're the professionals. I don't listen to what the news has to say about my doctor's advice, right? I listen to my doctor. And I think from a buyer's standpoint, a potential buyer standpoint, you have an excellent real estate agent in James Renfro. I've been in this business for 21 years. I've worked with thousands of agents, and James is among the best in San Diego County. And it's important that you have that level of representation, an expert both on the real estate and mortgage side. and even more important that you listen to their advice, right? And so I think really just taking the advice of the professionals and not listen to the news or not listen to what your neighbor thinks or your parents think. Make the decision for yourself based on professional advice, just like I do at the doctor's office.
Well, that sounds great. And that's a huge compliment, Roger. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity, James.
Thank you, Roger. Have a great day.
You too.
So to recap the strategy that Roger laid out, the buyer can negotiate a temporary rate buy down of 2% in the first year and 1% in the second year, which at today's rates would bring the initial rate to about 5%. And as you've heard, numerous experts in the field have predicted that the current rates will fall to the mid-4s within the next 12 to 24 months, which will give you a refinance opportunity prior to the mortgage going back to its full rate. This gives you the opportunity to buy while sellers are much more willing to negotiate their price and their terms. So you win in this high rate environment. And for sellers, you can offer this temporary rate buy down up front to avoid a large price reduction and position your property above your competition, which of course will get your property sold. I know this is a lot of information to take in. I hope I was able to shed some light on the current interest rates and how to beat them. If you decide to either buy or sell, please know that I'm here to guide you through this ever-changing market. Don't let just anybody help you with your most valuable asset. Fill out my questionnaire below and let me take care of the rest. Thanks for sticking around. I hope this video was helpful. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.